Hey everybody, welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives and the work and the business of the people in my network. So these are great leads to get to those books that I want to hear about, to know which ones have contributed the most to who they are as a person, as a worker, as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as an author, whoever it may be. And the three categories of books that I cover in this series are: one, where they're sharing a book with me that I haven't read; two, where we're covering a book we've both read, whether specifically for that episode or we read it in our past lives before even meeting or this series existed. The final category is when I get to talk to the author and or publisher, that kind of so that they can give a little backstory, a little experience of what it is that went into that book that they're sharing with us. And my guest today is Catalina Margulis. And Kat is an author, a book coach, publishing consultant, podcast host, and mother of four who has written for many of Canada's top publications over the past 20 years. A former journalist and content strategist for brands like ELLE and Walmart, Kat now works with speakers, experts, coaches, and thought leaders to help them write, publish, and market their book to grow their brand, business, and impact. Previously, Kat was an editor at ELLE Canada, Flair, and Today's Parent. She was a regular contributor at Savvymom, Mabel's Labels, and Walmart Canada, and she has written for more than 40 publications, including The Globe and Mail, Reader's Digest, and Yummy Mummy Club. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth, Kat, Yummy Mummy Club, but there it is. She also was the host of the Passion Project podcast at passionprojectpod.com, a podcast about making your dreams happen. Born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, she lives with her family in the suburbs of Toronto, Canada, and Kat's own book, which we're covering today, again, Only More Like You, arrived in bookstores on April 29th of this year. And you can learn more about Kat at katmargulis.com. Kat, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love this conversation.
Yeah, that's just looking at all the publications that you've worked for, with, collaborated with. That's just incredible.
Thank you.
Before even going into the first question, what is that like working with so many different publications that kind of cross all these different target markets? What is that like?
And I hadn't really appreciated it until I was working on my newsletter this week, actually, because I worked it into my newsletter this week. But I think it really refined my nose for story and for what makes a story fresh and new and novel. It's something I've been speaking to different organizations and some interviews that I've been doing recently about storytelling for business, and just that element of how do you reinvent a content, a message, a subject matter that other people have covered before. And so I feel like it's really prepared me in that sense to seek out, okay, what's the fresh angle here? What's unique about you and the way you deliver this, exactly, or what you're saying or how you say it, that we can exploit and leverage to get the kind of attention that you want to draw to you. So that's what was coming up for me this week.
Yeah, it's funny. I just, an episode I published just today, we were talking about that. I'd asked about book recommendations, that they could make additional book recommendations in addition to the book we were covering. And my guest spoke to a particular book. The point of what I'm sharing is that he said, there's nothing groundbreaking in this book. It's very foundational, but it keeps it up to date. It brings a new voice to it. It brings a new tone to it. So I've thought about that a lot in my own kind of writings. I haven't written extensively like you have, but it is interesting. It's like, okay, these common themes that we see on LinkedIn, there's so much that's kind of repetitive, right?
Yes.
Like you're seeing the same kind of messages. I'm not going to lie, not yours, but other people's.
Yeah.
You kind of just see so many people saying the same thing. At a certain point, I'm like, I don't even want to write anymore. But there are fresh voices that put a new perspective on it, like what you're talking about. So they're considerate in what they're sharing. It's not just the same old kind of task list, checklist kind of things of that we've always heard, or they tie a great story to kind of customize it to make it their own tone and voice.
Yeah. The two things that come up for me are Well, one, I was just looking, I just posted today an interview that was recorded weeks ago with me. And in it, they said, were there any books like this before? And I said, not when I needed this book, but that's a lie. Of course, there were books about this. And of course, there were women authors writing about these subject matters, but they didn't speak to it in a voice. They didn't use bad words like I used. It was very literary. It was very hoity-toity, and it wasn't gritty, and it wasn't in a context that I could really relate to. So I needed somebody that was coming from my era, my generation, going through this season. And so that, there's that of just being in the context of this with other people. And, yes, there's a book about it from 20 years ago, especially with leadership, so many books going way back and back and back, and they're still relevant today. We can still learn from them, but we also still need people to give it a reframe or a context, or make it fun by using the language we use today.
Yeah.
So there is that. And now I'm going to forget the other thing I wanted
That's all right.
to say about that.
I've been down this path before. You'll remember it like 50 minutes from now. You'll say, I remember that second thing.
Yeah. Oh, well, the other thing is, and I deal with this, and man, I have this too, and my clients have this too, which is, I'm, again, not saying anything that anybody else has not written about, whether it's Grant Cardone. Again, they're in our time. So you're competing against people in our time talking about similar things. Again, and so you have your own flavor, you have your own voice. But the other thing, I was doing a fun little exercise for my 16-year-old son, not that he knows about this, and I was having a conversation with ChatGPT about how to future-proof his life. And I was like, what careers are you not going to replace? Right. And I took it to task because I thought it was playing softball with me. But eventually we landed at, you are going to replace writers and editors and content creators, and got it. But it's the curation, that it's one person's unique world viewpoint, and that they become a curator. So kind of like speaking to what you were talking about, that you have your own favorite hits and you have your own favorite lessons, and that might vibe with people. So even if you are more of a curator than a content creator or originator of ideas, there's value as an editor's pick, right? From my old magazine world, where it's like, this is our edit. This is what we like, but we didn't create it. You just really like what we like.
Yeah. Like you speak about with newsletters. With my newsletter, it's the same kind of thing. I go every week, I see different, my whole thing is kind of, you're coming across stories in your week that will impact your leadership, whether you know it or not, even if it doesn't say the word or mention the word leadership in the article. So for me, it's like, there's so many lessons out there that you can bring into leadership. And again, these are all articles from different people, and I'm just kind of curating it and then writing a little bit about it so that people pick and choose certain things that I think that they could take away and value. But again, that curation is important. We'll see what happens with writing and editing in the future. But I do like that, because you got to wonder, there's, millions of books, thousands of books in any kind of specific niche. It's incredible that people will still pick it up if that voice is unique. Like you said, yours is raw. It's contemporary. You curse, which I appreciate. So I think we all need to remember, because even me, people will say, when are you going to write a book? And I'm like, I don't have anything novel to say. That was always my thing, anything new. But there are ways to take stuff that is foundational, but just lend your particular voice to it. So it's an interesting conversation. That's why I had to pick your brain right away.
Yeah. And to your point, there is so much content, and it's just growing and growing. And now we're competing against the content that AI is creating, the art it's creating, the newsletters it's creating. And so actually curation becomes more and more important, to have somebody sift through this for me that I really trust, that I really vibe with, and have somebody do that work for me. And so that there's value in that.
Not to go too deep at all into the whole AI thing, but what do you think will make the difference, aside from the curation, right? Aside from the editorial process of one person kind of making sure that all the right kind of messages are getting out there, but for the population of writers and all that, that's all those people that are out there, those specialists, what do you think happens in the future? We don't have to go deep, just a general thought. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I did ask chat this question, but I kind of already knew the answer, which is we are going to be put to task to become more and more human. It's kind of ironic that technology is almost training us to lean into our humanness because we can't beat it at productivity. We can only beat it on heart. That's it. That's all we've got. And so the only leverage we have is to become more and more human, more and more compassionate, real, honest, and that kind of content, that kind of communication and dialogue and podcasts like that, that just go so deep that the robot is not there yet. That is always going to be an opportunity for us, but it's also going to be a stretch.
Yeah. All right, Kat, in beginning our conversation, thank you for those responses, by the way. The first question is always, who are you today? So you gave me the great bio to introduce you with, and obviously a list of work that you're into today, but what does it look like on the ground across all those different areas? Can you give a little more about each of the areas that you're working in?
Yeah. So like you said, I'm an author. I just launched my book in April. So doing a lot of book promotion on that. And the book is it's a fictional book about two 40-something women whose lives are falling apart and, moving from breakdown to breakthrough. But the bones of it are personal development and leadership. So it's kind of like an undercover personal development book. So I kind of have like this weird, I'm kind of straddling two worlds. And how that plays out in my business is I've gone from, I went from journalist to reinvented to content strategy, to ultimately where I land now, which is, somebody who speaks on the power of story, both in our books and as authors ourselves, and the stories we tell ourselves and in a personal development context, and also helping leaders like yourself write and publish your books to grow your brand, business, and impact, and to write the most powerful, compelling books that we can create. So, on any given day, I'm supporting an author, telling their story or crafting their message, or working with rooms full of people or audiences to inspire them to explore their stories, tell their stories, share their stories, and also in it myself and doing the same thing.
Kat, to understand how you got here, can you give us a walkthrough of, it doesn't have to be extensively long, but from your youth to now, typically I'm curious about from high school or the time you entered the workforce, what did that look like from then to now? So we kind of get a sense of who's in front of us and what it is that built these values that you're providing in this interview, in this conversation, and then pouring into your work and your books.
Yeah, I love it. I see this in the work that I do with my authors because so much of it involves life storytelling, and it involves the knowledge and wisdom and experience they've accrued over their lives and careers. So I can kind of see, this story arc of them building. So now that they have a lot to offer people, and I can do the same with myself, that it's like everything was a building block, even when it felt like it was a wrong turn, even when it felt like it was a closed door, everything led me to this moment and for how I'm able to show up for people now. And so what were those building blocks? I think foundationally, and I was thinking about this interview today, I'm like, I must acknowledge that my parents are immigrants. So they're from Argentina originally, and we came to Canada when I was a year old, and they came here with nothing. And so there is that kind of like American dream, make it happen, work hard. Nobody's going to give you anything. You got to earn it, which has good parts and it has bad parts. Things I've had to work through over the years. But it gave me like that kind of American dream optimism that we can come from nothing and we can build. And that leadership was probably a little bit embedded in me already, that it's up to you. And, and just seeing my parents also like build themselves. So that was foundational. And then from that, I've always been a total bookworm, total reader, lover of words. And in high school, it became a bit more vocal where people were like, oh, you're a writer. Like, oh, that's what you're going to do with your life. But I still didn't know what it looked like. And to be honest, I really wanted to be a movie director.
Huh.
And I'm still kind of hoping I'm going to land there.
You never know. You never know what's going to happen. You never know.
No.
I've learned just from conversations like these, don't count anything out. It's never too late. You know, whatever your age may be in your 20s, you know, because kids in their 20s are kind of like, oh my God, I'm not this yet. I'm not that yet. It's like, you know, you got, at this point, you're going to have a good 60, 70 years from your 20s on where you get, where if you're curious enough, and you're exploring enough and you're looking for the right kind of people and you're putting that good energy out there, you never know. It's not going to be a lock, but you never know what's going to happen.
I love that. And I know, and I'm like, that's kind of what my fiction book is about, is like, we're making choices when we're 18, 20 about what the rest of our life is going to look like. But my experience has been, it actually changes, and you evolve and you start over, and you have career pivots and you have career transitions, and our identities are also always shifting. And so it's like we get to really throw that idea in the garbage that we are going to be this one person for the rest of our lives. And we get to be okay with reinvention all the time, every decade.
Yeah. I'm 46 years old, 46 and a half, reminded by my children this weekend that I'm not 46 and a half. You know, established career, white picket fence, all that kind of American dream kind of stuff. And I'm still itching for whatever that next thing is. So it just a reminder, it for certain people, especially as a kid of immigrants, myself, I understand kind of that. There's always this conversation about the immigrant mentality, and that it's, you know, maybe in your DNA that, you know, your parents came here, your grandparents came here, whoever it may be, whichever generation did, that it's in our blood to kind of just keep seeing what that next thing is. Yeah. Maybe there's something to it. I don't know. But everybody that I've had on this show that's been an immigrant to their country, wherever they landed, or their family, whatever generation before them, it's that same kind of story. It's this kind of, these values, this strength, this resilience to just kind of keep building. That no one's gonna help you. I mean, our parents and previous generations had it worse than we do, but again, it's in our blood just to keep kind of fighting for what we want.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, you know, in my career, actually, I felt, you know, the thrill was in getting the job always. And then the moment I got that job, as great as it was at some of the top fashion magazines in the country, the moment I got there, I was like, day one, I'm back on the job board. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, there's something wrong with you. But I guess my emotional home is in the uncertainty and the thrill and the chasing and the, you know, I'd like to be, thankfully, I'm married to somebody who's extremely content and doesn't desire or crave or aspire. So he's like, this is the most beautiful day. This is the most beautiful meal. I do not need anything else.
Can you speak to why you say that? I can agree wholeheartedly, but can you speak just a little bit more to that?
Yeah, I mean,
that
like
balance between you two.
Yeah, just like, you know, I think that he reminds me that this moment is perfect. He embodies it, and I'm through my faith, I'm learning to, in meditation and all of those things. It's a muscle I'm working on because I really want to be present. But it is against my nature, or you know, the way I've been designed and way I've designed myself is to always be on the edge. So I like when things are uncomfortable. I feel like I'm safe there. Like I'm used to not, you know, I'm used to being on the edge. And when things are comfortable, I'm waiting for something bad to happen. So I'm trying to always outrun that.
No, I can. That resonates with me.
Yeah,
I don't do good with everything is good. I don't know how to explain it, but in real time, the connection between my immigrant past and that is, because my dad was the same way. He could never go on vacation. He was like a working guy. He wasn't good at sitting down and relaxing. Every once in a while, a Charles Bronson movie, he'd check it out. But he was, you know, he'd watch a movie, but then after that, it's like, all right, I got to be on the go. So there's this impulse to just keep going for that next thing.
And I mean, like I'm so grateful for it because it makes me do impossible things, or seemingly impossible things. But I struggle with my kids, and you've got kids, I heard you say. So the hard part is, you know, and I talk to them about this. I'm like, damn, like, you're not hungry enough. That kid's hungrier than you are. I was hungrier than you are. but on the other hand, I want to give them everything. And so it's like so hard because everything that I give them makes them less hungry. But it's painful to withhold or to say, hey, we don't have the money for it this month. Like, oh my God, like that is like the hardest thing I've had to do. What do you mean? You know what I mean? But if we don't let them in to see some of that stuff, then at the same time, they just think everything comes and it's easy and they don't grow those muscles or that resilience. You know, it's so hard to be a parent.
Yeah, it is. We can leave that for another show because that's another podcast series.
Yeah.
And that would be particularly interesting, a podcast series about parenting as like a first generation kid yourself, because those worlds, they just clash. Where what I saw with my parents were like, you know, multiple jobs, never on any kind of assistance, nothing like that, because they would just constantly working. Yeah. That was just my experience. And my sister and I had everything we needed. Yeah. There were things that we wanted and we'd let it be known, and then you turn around and like you said, you become a professional, you become an executive, you become professional, and you're able to provide for your kids. But then at what point do they learn those valuable lessons that we learned? So it's a very weird pivot being a son of an immigrant and then turning around and in one generation being able to achieve the dreams that they had. Listen, my parents were like, I don't want you to work in a factory. You know, I don't want you coming home smelling like oil. I don't want your body hurting, things like that.
Yeah.
And now I don't have to worry about anything like that. And then you turn around, it's like, okay, how can I instill hard work in my kids and still really allow them to enjoy life? It's tricky. I never thought about that real comparison until you brought it up just now.
Yeah. It's a tough one. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of this ambition and drive is born from pain, and you know, it's like the gifts, and that's kind of what maybe we explore in personal development and leadership. Is like my parents were also divorced when I was young, so there was good things that came out of that. You know, that uncertainty, that fear, like a lot of that drives and motivates me. And my husband, you know, grew up in a very nuclear stay-at-home mom family, 3rd, 4th generation Canadian. They didn't have a lot of money, but it was like really a leave it to Beaver kind of experience. And he's very peaceful and just
because it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out, you know. Okay. So you had mentioned high school. People saw you were a writer. You thought you were going to be a director. Side question: what's your favorite movie?
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? Oh my Lord, I don't even know.
Loaded question. Okay,
I'll have to come back to that.
Okay. Okay. So high school writing,
right? And then everybody. So it's like, well, what do I do? How do I make money? And it seemed like there were 2 paths. There was publishing, and there was journalism. I heard that publishing paid really poorly, and I do like money. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to be a starving artist. Otherwise I would have gone to film school. I don't want to be on somebody's couch forever. So I picked what I thought was the sure bet. And then ironically enough, journalism imploded. We'll talk about that in a moment. And I'm back in book publishing, which would have been that first path that I probably would have chose if I wasn't chasing the money or the titles or the fame or all of those things.
Okay. And then did you go into college at all or straight into the workforce?
So I did journalism print diploma in college. I took a gap year and just realized like real life sucks. I better choose something I like. And then I went to college and that was great. It was so empowering and exciting to know, hey, I could start my own magazine tomorrow. I can build a website. This was before the internet almost. This was like, what was that, Netscape? You know, it was like really early on. And I'm like, I can build websites and I can do like all these amazing things.
Netscape. I haven't heard that since 1995.
And then I interned. And I started, working my way up in magazines. But when I interned, we were faxing things to doctors to fact check it. Nobody had emails. People weren't even emailing back then. Yeah. And so we had an in-house library at McLean's Library. You could go to their reference library. Nobody goes there. Everybody hops on Google now. So I worked my way through journalism. But before that, I also was like, it's too soon. I'm not ready. I want to have some fun. So I went to university for French and Spanish. I majored in French, minored in Spanish. And so I kind of worked part-time, and I just sort of put the brakes on my career a little bit. And then I went all in after I felt like I had the university experience as well. But the literature then also really, was informed me and taught me a lot. So then just simply worked my way up the ladder until I had kids. And then it got really hard to work downtown in the big city magazines. And I ended up coming home and building out my own content agency and a lot of the jobs had to do with branded content and custom content for corporations and businesses and organizations. So I just did it in-house as my own agency. And until I started writing my book, and then that changed everything.
Now, Kat, does it make sense from your childhood that this is what you're doing? I can take a guess based on what you've shared. Not that you knew you were going to end up here, but who you were as a kid.
Yeah.
How much of that is reflected in who you are today and the work you're doing?
That's a great question. I mean, definitely the journalism. Without that, I wouldn't have been a good writer and editor and content strategist, which is something I bring to book publishing because yes, I love books. Yes, I love craft, but I'm willing to work with fiction authors, but I really love expert-driven content, personal development books, things that are going to change people's lives and make them or their business better. And I think that's just maybe it's the immigrant thing. It's the hustler thing. Like I love art for art's sake. And I feel like my books get to be that. I don't want to be driven by book sales, but my business, I've always loved business. I always loved money. I always like hustling and, all that stuff. So I feel like content married with business goals and outcomes and craft and art all colliding together is my special sauce of what I do. And I think what maybe makes me different from other people in my space.
What do you consider your superpower?
I
ask that because I'm always curious. As a coach, you always want to hear that somebody recognizes the good in themselves, what's the best in themselves, that they see like the better attributes of themselves. So I'm always curious. I only introduced that question maybe a year ago, but I'm always curious about what somebody would say, this is my thing. This is what I'm best at, or this is what I'm known for. Like this one thing no one can take away from me. That's just my thing.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the special sauce has something to do with it, but I would think these past 5 years that I've been doing the book coaching and publishing consulting has also been a time of personal development journey, which became a spiritual journey. And so I learned to trust myself more. And as I learned to trust myself more, I learned to trust God more and listen more and listen to other people, listen to the listening. And so I think that, and even through writing my own book, so I think is the intuitiveness. And by intuitiveness, I mean listening to something that the client might not even be saying, or listening to what the universe or God or like the cloud wants to share with me, and just being so available to information that's not just my own expertise, but what is out there floating around us. Like, so for some people, this might get a bit of woo-woo, but do you like Rick Rubin? Do you know who Rick Rubin is? Do you like the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he built everybody, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so
from rap to rock, Johnny Cash collaborations. Oh,
yes. Yeah. So I could talk about this.
We covered his book, Creative: A Way of Being. We covered it twice on this series so far.
I didn't know. I didn't list it for you, but it's like so great because I felt like when I read his book, I'm like, oh, somebody gets it. Like somebody that other people think is not crazy. And so, for me, we will not know the answers to this, but call it the cloud. And I love that Rick would say like all these ideas, inspirations, knowledge is available to all of us all the time. So when we think we see genius, really we have somebody who has made themselves available and has accessed something outside of themselves that's available to everyone here. And it's really just making it yourself available and then listening
Yeah.
But yeah.
You've read the book Big Magic?
I have not been going to, because I was just talking with somebody about the other day, because I'm like, maybe I'm going to write a book about this. I know Rick's book is perfect.
Yeah.
And I could add to that. So I have to read her, so I make sure I don't again, I have something or different to offer.
Well, the weird thing is, within that book, not a real spoiler, but within that book, she tells the story of kind of along the same lines of what you just said.
Yeah.
Everything is out there. You just have to make yourself open to it, grab it, whatever it may be. She spoke to an example where she had an idea for something and kept putting it off. And then eventually another book came out and it was the exact same idea. And she just said like that, I wasn't ready for it. It was ready for somebody else. But speaking of just like simple, like his writing in that book is just very simple. It's just like everyday conversation, right? Yeah. But it's like so simple, but just so effective.
Yeah.
And I want to say like some of the ideas, so, again, it's one of those things where, okay, people have written about creativity in the past, but Rick Rubin has his own take on what it looks like, what it feels like.
Yeah.
Finishing a product, finishing a piece, not finishing it, just letting go, detachment, all of it. That's one of those books like where you have a good idea of what the concept is, but then when you read it in his words and his voice from his experiences, my idea of creativity after reading that book, as well as Big Magic, this book most, Rick's book most, is just the possibilities are just never ending.
Yeah.
You know, we just have to look for them. And I think so many people just get trapped in what's around them. They're not satisfied with it. And they just kind of wilt instead of like saying, excuse me, and stepping out into seeing what's out there for them. Incredible book.
Yeah. It's awesome. I got to interview, you might want to interview him or check him out one day. His name is Angus Fletcher, and he consults with like the military, you know what I mean? The American military. And but he's a bit of, he is a storytelling expert. And so he's really fascinating to talk to about creativity. And like, we just don't even know the beginnings of how creative can be and what's available to us. And we are our own limiting beliefs, right? Like as humans, but he's like, there is so much more we haven't tapped into. And, so it's so inspiring because we can kind of just be like, this is what we got to work with. Like, this is it. Like, you know what I mean? We got a knife, we got a pen, we got a computer. And it's like, oh no, there is a lot more. We're just getting started.
Yeah. You know, and the times where I felt like I wasn't in tune with life the way that I wanted to be were the times where I was just kind of, playing the cards I was dealt, just existing in the circles of the businesses or the work or the people that I was surrounded by. But when you kind of break out of that, that's when I kind of feel alive, is in that journey of creating and looking for people, finding people, having these kind of conversations. This to me is one of my ultimate creativities. Like I play music here and there. I love to write. I love photography, but this is one of my favorite parts of designing life, is just having these kind of conversations and listening to people share their stories. I learned so much about you and what we're at 33 minutes now. But I've realized how much we have in common, the immigrant story, the creativity. So to me, that's my favorite creativity, is learning about someone else and seeing what we can come up with, even in a conversation.
Yeah, I had a podcast for a few years and I put it on pause and moved it to gated content just to anyways, that's a whole conversation. But anyways, I'm just like, I want to get back to, I just love the conversation so much.
Yeah,
and then I was in like book launch mode. So I'm like, this is not the right time. After this season, I will revisit it.
Yeah,
I adore the conversation.
It'll pull you back in. Kat, what does leadership mean to you? What does great leadership look like? Thoughts?
That is really great one. Yeah, I was chatting with my kids about that yesterday. So I think leadership is, it's got to start with leading yourself. So nobody telling you what needs to happen, you knowing what needs to happen and you taking care of it and not waiting for things to come to you or to happen. So leading your life by design, intentional, and then from there, inspiring, empowering others to do that for themselves and collectively through whatever you guys are creating together in collaboration.
I'm curious, just from your experience in writing journalism, writing for various publications, you don't have to name names, but was there a particular editor, boss, type, give specific examples of them without mentioning their name, or type in that kind of field? Who is it that really to you stands out? What type of person stands out as a good leader or an example of what you saw or experienced?
That is so good, because John, all I have are bad examples.
Which you learn from too, right? As long as you maintain those lessons. Yeah, no.
There was just one toxic workplace after another, and it's not always, some people are just inheriting and they don't have the leadership or tools to transform. So to transform the workplace. So I don't put it all on them. It's top down. But I was fortunate, like I did do, and I was always looking for mentorship and just like all those things that I missed that I didn't have coming up in that area. And I did personal development, which was really a transformational leadership program. And that's where I found some real leaders, real mentors, people who were really playing team, who taught me how to play like a team, and wonderful trainers. That was a wonderful experience. And I think that's probably the first time in my life, like I'm thinking through college, through work, I don't feel I had too many of that as much as I craved it and wanted it and asked for it even. I think everybody was just so much in scarcity and trying to protect their jobs, trying to, protect the status quo.
Yeah, now we can jump into the book. Why don't you introduce the book, and we'll jump into the book itself, but why don't you introduce the book and tell us how it came to be?
Yeah. So, how did it come to be? So I had, I get the chronology a little bit, but yes, I was in and out a few different times out of that, the whole downtown magazine thing. When I was having my kids, like a really great opportunity might happen. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go in and I'll do a contract. I'll just get this on my resume. I'll make a quick, X amount of money. And then I would come back, and I always had my business running in the background. And it was just happening over and over again. And, I got restructured out of jobs. Journalism just has been going through it. I don't even think there's that many journalism jobs for them to cut. But at the time, there were just one swath of job cuts after another. So I'd had a few of those experiences. And I just thought, I keep banging on the same door, and maybe this is not the right avenue for me anymore. And I was just like, okay, well, if it's not this, which is the only thing I know, and I've spent my whole life getting to this moment, what do I do? And just having that existential crisis moment. And so I was pregnant. I had a lot of time. Nobody was going to hire me. And enough doors had closed on me that I thought, okay, I really need to take a moment and figure out my next step. And so I started to write the book. And I first wrote it as a screenplay, a really bad one, because I have never taken a screenwriting course. So I wrote it like that. And then, just over the years, refining and editing and taking feedback. But it's essentially always been, the story of these two friends turning 40 and just looking at their lives going, wow, how did I get here? I don't think I want this anymore. Can I start over? Can I still make something happen at this point in my life, at this age? And I was going through that and discovering the answer for myself, which is absolutely, your best can be yet to come, and you can start over, and you can build off of everything that came before. You don't have to scrap it, but you also don't have to continue to live it, and you can make amazing things happen. And so it's a little bit of the story of my life, but also I think a story about a lot of us that reached this inflection point.
Were you having that kind of conversation? I know for yourself, yeah, but with other people, friends kind of going through the same thing?
No, I felt really alone. I felt very alone in that moment. I think since then I was, also in the, looking good. So not wanting, I wasn't as authentic and open and honest as I am now. I'm kind of like an open book now. And I can have deeper heart to heart conversations with the people in my life now that I wanted to figure things out and fix it myself back then. But, I definitely see it with a lot of the people that I work with that are, again, they've built so much experience, and it's like stepping off a cliff when they're like, I'm going to write this book. It could change my life. Like, I think I want to go in this direction, but it means quitting my job, leaving that very high paying corporate gig. And they come to me because they know I've been on that journey. They're like, can I do this? Am I going to screw this up? Am I going to lose my house? Are my kids going to hate me for it? You know what I mean? And but I'm in it with them, and then they do it, and it's incredible what happens after. So I think it's just, and we had to put our time in. We had to work our way up the ladder. We had to accrue all that experience. Because sometimes I wonder, if all of this was available to me from the get-go when I was 20 and I never had to sell out or take a job for money or chase a title or chase something that getting into fashion week, you know what I mean? Like, if all this that I'm experiencing is self-actualization and deep fulfillment now, if it was always available to me, why didn't I do this when I was 20? Why didn't I write the book when I was 20? And it's like, because you didn't have enough to say, you didn't have the knowledge, you didn't have the pain, and you didn't have all of those things.
That's what I was going to say, is you didn't have the pain points.
No.
Because I think at that age, when you're out of college, late teens, early 20s, into a career, you're chasing the titles, you're chasing the accolades, you're chasing the awards, you're chasing the salary, whatever it may be. You're chasing the highs.
Yes.
But I don't know. Like, I think most of us have been there, that we've gotten those things. And then it's kind of like, okay,
yeah.
I read it somewhere, or maybe it was a guess, but we talked about, you're climbing up the mountain, you think you're at the top, and then you look and there's like an even higher mountain that now you got to climb that, whether there are goals above that or not. But at the same time, I think most of us go through those pitfalls. Most of us have those down moments. Most of us have the trials, the tribulations, whatever word you want to use, the obstacles. Not that we want them to, not that we want them or need them to be in our lives, but they make everything taste sweeter when you've seen the opposite of those highs.
Yeah.
It's, and you're like, if I had the self-actualization when I was younger, what would have happened? You wouldn't have had it, just because even if you had this mind, this wherewithal, then you probably wouldn't have used it correctly. Like, you would have had that realization, I need pain, I need suffering to really find what's the sweet spot for me. Yeah. But then you have your whole life ahead of you, and it wouldn't work out right. I think this is just the trajectory of a great life, is just working hard, recognizing those pitfalls, recognizing those tough times, and then kind of building upon that. It's just, you know how it is. The more conversations you have like this, the more you realize that's typically the path that most people, not everyone, but most people take.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just writing about this recently, which is, I have this sticky note. It's right here. And I don't even know where I saw it or read it or came to it, but it's second chapter belongs to God. And I don't know when or how that came to me, but I was in a bookstore in New York for a book signing, and a woman came up and wanted to buy my book and have me sign it. And we got to talking, and I was telling her what the book was about. She's like, oh, I can really relate. And turns out she was a lawyer, and she was a young widow. So she was now working to become a grief counselor. And so she was leaving her whole law chapter behind to become a grief coach. And I'm just like, I told her about the sticky note, and I was like, I feel like, yes, this is all training. And then we reach this part and we're very raw, and we've been through pain, and we're a lot more compassionate. We have different values and priorities. And I find definitely in my space and the people that I'm meeting now in my life and supporting, they just really want to help other people with what they have and what they know. They just want to help people.
I mean, everything you just said mirrors so many conversations I've had on here where people work so hard in one direction, achieved all those things I talked about, accolades, awards, the titles, salary, whatever it may be. And it still something was off. Either they decided something was off, something didn't just seem right, or they were kind of knocked from their perch and had to pivot and do something else. And then they're thriving. Whatever it is now, they're thriving because they're taking all those lessons, whether it's from childhood trauma, big T, little t, disruptions, or something later in life. I don't know. The best, not that everybody's life has to take that path, but the most incredible stories I've heard are those where people really want to help other people, not avoid what they had to endure, but to kind of maybe get through it, maybe a little less bruised and battered. But it's incredible how everybody goes through those stories, those experiences, and they come out the other end wanting to share those lessons with other people.
Yeah. And I mean, you asked me earlier about what leadership, and I think that's true leadership, right? That's really, it's not about you leading. It's more like servant leader, right? It's more like the Jesus model. And I had one of our trainers when I was going through personal development and transformational leadership, Michael Strasner. I think he even trained Lewis Howes. Okay. But so he's amazing, and he talks about being a star maker, and like that just really, I'm on my own trajectory. I'm launching books and building my business and getting on stages, but I see myself as a star maker and supporting these people and turning them into stars, and they just want to turn other people into stars. And it's just that, and we're all leaders. This is what leadership looks like.
I love that. I love that image of just that's what it comes to, is just, I thought about that recently. I forget what the trigger was that made me think that way, but just how most of us are kind of working in one direction to have everything come our way. And then we pivot and we're helping others help them have everything come their way. But then if they have those similar values, if they want the best out of life, they're not just taking it for them. They're just kind of all paying it forward. And so I like that image you just painted of just helping others and having that ripple effect.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I see with my business. I say it's like I have exponential impact. I can help one person write a book. And like my client, Matt Rogers, he helps kids get their dream placement at colleges, but he's helping kids that might come from underprivileged homes, but for them to lead it, not wait for that scholarship or that dream team to come to them. They're going to lead it and they're going to go get it. And he's going to give them the tools. He can help all these kids for the price of a paperback book. And he made sure it was priced well. Like he wanted to make sure it wasn't too pricey, even the book, but he can help thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of kids. And all I had to do was help that one guy. It's like so cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I mean, this came up in another conversation recently where it's just like that impact of helping one person. We're in this influencer social media era of, you got to have so many followers, this and that, which is great because I think, if you want your message out there, obviously the more people, the better. But I think we tend to forget what impacting or changing just one person's life, what value that holds for that person. And then based on the ripple effect that you and I are talking about, what they can do for other people. Now the value they see in themselves that they can share with others.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Kat, when you talked about the last couple years, you spoke about like an awakening, your spirituality. You've mentioned God a couple times. So what was that pivot point from the way you were feeling kind of lost to now more confident in getting your stuff out there? I guess, where did the component of religion come in? And were there any other factors that really helped you wake you up to what you could bring other people in this current iteration of yourself?
Yes, I love that. The current iteration. I love it. And actually that gives me a chance. I'll chat about this other book. So
sure.
I feel like I grew up in a very as much as we're like South American, I was in a very anti-religious household.
Really?
Yeah, it was a bad word. I don't even want to, they're
Wow.
still very uncomfortable with me leaning here. And what happened, I think, I mean, I always had respect for God, but I just thought, oh, I'm a maggot. He does not care about me. Like, you know what I mean? But much respect. So I never had a relationship. And I was going through personal development. And so that was kind of opening some doors just in terms of just getting deeper with myself, getting more like tuning in, and also like how
Can
we
you
relate.
speak more about that
Yeah.
program, Kat? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you speak about that program, just like how you came across it?
I mean, it started with some books, and then I had a business coach, and it wasn't even her. My sister started getting life coaching. She was being coached, and then she went into a personal development program, and she recommended it to me, and I still wasn't sold on it. But then I talked to my business coach, and I'm like, hey, like I have a good life. I've got a husband I love. I've got happy children. I have my own business. And she's like, this was the clincher. Don't let your good life get in the way of your great life. And I was like, damn, I'm in.
Yeah.
You got me there. And so I went into this personal development program, and that became a transformational leadership program. And then I kept going and mastering and PhD and on and on and on, just totally addicted. And then volunteer coaching, even though I never wanted to be a life coach, just paying it forward and helping for other people with their transformation. And so, you are looking at existential questions of what are we doing here? What are we meant to do in this life? And, it's just kind of like all those big questions that you're just like school, job, check-in, 9 to 5, commuting, dinner.
Yeah,
you're not
script.
in that. Yes. And you don't really have even a breath to think about these things. And all of a sudden it's like, now we have time to really have these big conversations and heart to hearts and all of that stuff. And so that was happening. But I mean, really what was a big thing was one of my friends had cancer. This pretty much did it for me. When my friends had cancer and I was out of pep talks, I had nothing else to give to her. And at the same time, I was also co-staffing with a pastor. So he was a friend of mine and we were having some chats. And so I said, why don't we go to church? I had no other ideas. I didn't know how else to deal with her diagnosis and what I could say to her. I said, let's go to church. So we went to my pastor friend, David Steins of Experience Church in California. COVID was happening at the same time. And I was also dealing with the pandemic and like, oh my God, like what is going on? And so we went to his Zoom church that was happening, and she left halfway through the session and I stayed and I kept coming back and I came back week after week and just slowly dipping. And again, mostly conversations and exploring and seeking. And I'm still in that. Like I still don't have answers. I still don't know who Jesus is for me or if I'm 100% sold on Jesus, but I'm like, I'm curious. I'm leaning in. I want to hear more. I definitely want to be available to God more. And what does he have to teach me? And one book that I have here that I want to share with you is Living Fearless. This is a great book. And it's exchanging. Yeah, this is Jamie Winship, Living Fearless. And I want to share this book because it asks a question that has served me so much. And again, like just when we were talking about Rick Rubin and the cloud, it's like, just not thinking that I have all the answers or there are no answers. So when, saying, what else do you want me to know? Like literally, and Jamie really is like, what do you want me to know, God, about this moment, about this season, about this person in front of me, about this challenge? And that is such a powerful question. It's changed my life, just being available and then being quiet and seeing what comes. And so that's my spiritual journey right now is just, one step at a time. Just what do you want me to know in this moment? And talk me through this and making time for it every day to be in that conversation and that seeking and curiosity.
So that journey overlapped your writing of the book?
Yes.
Okay.
And in a subsequent book, but that hasn't come out yet. And I still have to work on that more.
What's the general idea behind that book?
So this is more of a feel-good book. This is more my personal development book. And the other book, well, it's about cancer, divorce, and bad neighbors. So it's a little bit heavier. It's a little bit heavier.
Listen, but anything that's heavier, anything that sounds bad, I don't know. Like, I want to hear about it because it gives you a perspective. It gives you a vantage point. It does help you appreciate everything outside of that a little more. So, I mean, I don't shy. I jokingly kind of cringed when you said all that, but you know, you got to hear.
I'm sure the agents and publishers are too. I'm sure the agents and publishers are too. But that was a little bit more the spiritual, like real existential. And the thing is, you don't need to have cancer, and cancer is really a metaphor in that book. You don't need to have cancer, but we all, well, we have to think we're immortal to get through every day. But at any moment, each one of us can disappear. And so it's living intentionally and checking my relationships, checking my happy meter. Am I a good person? Can I do better?
Yeah, I like that. I think because for the most part, we're going through the motions of the everyday, meeting up with friends, exchanging what's going on in each other's life, kind of just like reporting to each other. It's a little more than that, but it just, if you look at it, it's more kind of reporting to each other instead of really understanding, seeking out, elevating others. There's just a little more to it than I think we put in if we're just kind of in our default mode setting. So I appreciate that. Kat, you've mentioned how you've evolved, but I'm curious, this is always a question that I ask. I'm curious, in writing the books, what lessons have you taken away from the book? So is there anything you want to share, maybe something you haven't mentioned? How has this book coming out, how has it changed you? How has it evolved your thinking? You may go into writing the book thinking one way about the topic, but then once it's out or you've written it, things have changed. So what's changed in you because of the book?
The book is a magic thing. Like, it is a magic thing. It's just, I don't even know where to begin. So I guess what I want to share with people is sometimes people want to write a book because they think that it can help other people. It can change. It can create change. It can create knowledge. It can create breakthroughs, transformation. And so they think they can cause change for other people. And so I feel like I'm here to share that it's as much about your transformation. And if you do it right, I believe, and maybe I'm partial here because that's been my personal experience. If you do this right, you're going to change through the process. It's going to change your business. That's probably another reason why you're in it. It's going to change your business. It's going to change your whole life trajectory. New doors will open, new stages will open up for you. But you are going to go through breakdowns and breakthroughs as you write this book. I mean, even me, it's constantly stretching me to promote. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about myself anymore. But I'm like, I got it. And I'm like, it's even now this book it's done. It's out in the world. It's on bookshelves. Even now this book is working me, making me evolve. But it's, when the happy ending in the book, some people are like, oh, it's about you. And it's like, yeah, but when I wrote that book, I was at my rock bottom. And the book was an exercise of what does my happily ever after look like? And I wrote what I thought my happily ever after could look like. And I got pretty close to it happening, but it didn't exist back then. So just so much there in terms of like our narratives we grow up with, the narratives that run our lives, rewriting narratives, writing your own happy ending, writing a book that can transform others, but that is also stretching you and requiring of you to be more vulnerable, be more honest, be more bold in how you promote the book and talk about, like it's just all the things.
Yeah. And I mean, these are all like essentially first time lessons for you.
Yes.
I'm assuming that process just awakens in you new things you didn't know you were capable of, new skills, new energy. I can only imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been pretty wild.
Going back to the question on the movies.
Oh
So
yeah.
can you list a couple of the, since you want to be a director at
Yes.
that young age, I'm curious what movies, or maybe a
Yeah.
better question is, what movies at that age inspired you to say, I think I want to be a director?
So good. You know what? I think there's a bad condescending word. I think it's called something. There's a name for it. But when I write my book, this book and the other book, even, like, I know what the movie trailer looks like in my mind. And even if I'm helping somebody write a book, hopefully there's storytelling. Hopefully there are moments, like I'm listening to them tell their book and tell me their story, and I'm looking for the movie trailer moments. And so I see these things as movies. So I feel like that's where the director comes from. I never wanted to be in front of the camera. I wanted to be the vision, and where are we directing the camera and the audience's eye. But yeah, no, I always love movie. I was telling my kids, but one of them cringed. I'm like, we need to do a run of M. Night
Shyamalan.
I've been saying it wrong all the time. I just fact checked it yesterday. I'm like, I've been saying it wrong for years, but now I'm going to have to retrain my tongue. I'm like, we need to do a run of his movies, because I listened to his podcast with Rick Rubin. It was so good.
Oh,
and,
I didn't know they did.
Oh, it was so great, because
So
there's a lot of
was
existential stuff in there. And I'm like, ooh.
See, I can't imagine those two talking.
Yeah, it was
not in a bad
really
way.
good.
I mean, I can't even, because they're two great creatives.
Yeah.
You know, and M. Night, his movies, they're very divisive.
Yeah.
But I've always respected him because I think he's like a great storyteller.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a big blockbuster movie. It's just kind of like, here's a simple story with some punch. So
yeah,
I have to
you got to listen to it. And then, like, he's not the one that made me want to be a movie director, but I was like, that's a great conversation. But now I want to do a run of those movies with my boys. But I love, gosh, I mean, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Like, that's a movie I want my kids to watch. And I love,
that's a heavy one.
That is. I mean, I love Oliver Stone. But I love My Lost Boys, and I love Point Break. Like, this is not going to be very inspiring for the audience, but I'm like, the kids know Point Break is like my all-time favorite movie.
No, that's fine. This isn't for the audience. This was my curiosity about your movie.
Snobby.
I judge people by the movies they like, so you're doing good so far.
But yeah, I love, I mean, I'm open to all of it, to be honest, but I really love comedy. I love comedic actors in dramatic roles like Jim Carrey and, I mean, Adam Sandler. They all do pathos so well. We just watched Champions with Woody Harrelson, where he coaches a team of Down syndrome kids.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a great movie.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they do great stuff, all these comedy actors. So
as a director, what kind of films would you want to direct?
I mean, I think I would really like to make this into even if it was a Netflix series, and definitely the other one. I see the movie trailer, and I really do. Whether other people will see it, I don't know, but I am loving particularly seeing women just full frontal breaking down brutally honest conversations and the breakthroughs that come from that. Somebody turned me on to White Lotus, the latest season. I have to watch it. Has been really interesting, they say. And even today I just posted an interview. I actually did it weeks ago, where I was sharing about American Beauty. And that movie made me so mad. That movie enraged me. But now looking back, I'm like,
because they wasted a plastic bag, or
no, you know what? I feel like, and now I think I have the words for it, but I didn't when I was a girl and I watched it. I feel like Annette Bening's character was so fascinating, and I feel like they got her wrong, but I feel like she got her right. I do feel like Annette Bening did a great job of her, but I feel like now I would say this new phrase I've never said before, which is the male gaze. It was the male gaze trying to understand a 40-something, I don't know how old she was in that movie, but a woman in that stage of her life. I feel like it's what the man thinks the woman is experiencing or feeling or thinking, or why she feels that way. And I don't feel that was honest or authentic for me. I feel like she had a lot more to say and nobody gave her the words or the play time. And so I kind of feel like that's my job to do.
You got to write to Sam Mendes and tell him what's up.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm curious how, if you had the chance to change it, what you would change.
That's
how you would change
one. I'm
it to kind of have, how you would change it to, you know, even if you got, because it doesn't take much in movies, even if you altered or added 5 to 10 minutes of her screen time, it's like, how would you change it so that what you want to come through comes through? That's interesting.
Oh my God, John, thank you. I'm going to like totally incorporate this into my edit for my next book, because I'm struggling with that one. Again, the themes are really heavy. So how do I make somebody want to go on that journey with me? That's a great exercise for me.
I love it. I think that's everything, Kat.
Amazing. See. That was so fun.
Were there any other books that you had that you would recommend for people? You already mentioned the book you had next to you.
Yeah.
Are there any other ones that stand out that inspire you, especially as a writer, especially as a journalist, especially as a creative? We talked the Creative Act, The Way of Being. We talked about that one. Any other ones that jump out?
Stephen King is the obvious one. I quote it a lot. And that's what I found too. Like as a writer, I always wanted that like retreat in the woods, nobody bug me. And even my writers can sometimes feel like that's what's supposed to happen or needs to happen to be creative. And the opposite is what happened with me, is like, no, life pummeled me and there is no time for me to write. And that has forced me to write in unusual situations and incorporate in my day and incorporate what people are giving me all day long. And now I'm taking notes. Oh, that was a beautiful thing you just said. I'm sorry, that's going in my book. I have a sweater that says anything that you say may end up in my book. And so I'm picking pieces all day long because I never have a moment to myself, and it's all going into notes in my phone. So Stephen King talks about how he organized his writing room. He's going to have this perfect writing room.
Is that from his book? No, is that from his book on writing?
On writing.
Okay. No, I put it because a guest brought it up a few weeks ago, and I've never gotten around to it.
Yeah. So he talks about he was going to build this perfect writing studio. Nobody was going to bug him. It was going to have a big desk, and he was going to have it in the middle of the room. And so he does this, and everybody is kicked out, not allowed to walk into the room, and crickets. He's got nothing. Yeah. And what he eventually ended up doing was moving the desk into the corner of the room, inviting the wife in, inviting the kids in, letting life happen. And that's where the creativity flowed after that. So that was a very powerful affirmation for me. I really love that.
Now, the comedian in me is saying that's funny that the second he invites his wife and kids into the room is when his best horror takes place and comes out of his mind.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, exactly. Come on.
It's all good material. It's all good. But I do want to mention the other book. And I didn't bring it to my desk because I think I have this on my Kindle or I borrowed it from a library. I promise you I read the whole book. And it's The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
Somebody just mentioned that to me last week.
And this one comes up again and again in my coaching with my clients. And, it doesn't come up in my book, but my book exemplifies it, which is that when you're coming up against your next level, the next thing you're going to access, that, beyond limiting beliefs, we all have like our internal glass ceiling that wants to keep us safe, small, stuck, all of those things. And so all of these things bubble up, not just internally, but we can even source like all this drama happening in our lives, or maybe having to go to the hospital, or different things that we can kind of like start to happen in our lives, everything to keep us where we are, because it's this threshold that you have to cross to get to what's on the other side, which is your next level of greatness. And so it's a wonderful book because I can see it bubble up for the people that I'm working with, and they may say, like, whatever, I couldn't find time for the book, or I'm having writer's block, or like whatever. But I'm like, inside, I'm like, no, it's the big leap right now, right? Like, you're just terrified of what's on the other side and that you might fail. Yeah.
One thing I want to ask about before I start wrapping up, the title, again, Only More Like You. Can you just speak to how you came up like that, came up with that? Where did that come from? What does it mean to you?
Yeah. So I had another titled The Hill, but that didn't really go anywhere. And I don't remember where I got this from, but it became a fixed note in my edits as I would go through a revision and revision and revision to be like, more like you, more like you. Like I wanted to, it's like Michelangelo said of the David. I wanted to chip everything away that wasn't the David. I wanted to get at the heart of the root of these characters and stories and remove all artifice. That's why I wanted to. It's not very literary. I'm like, I can do literary. I'm a French and Spanish lit major. I didn't read anything past the 20th century until I hit 40. Like I know classics, but I wanted to remove all those literary devices and make it. I didn't want any speck of literary in here. I wanted it to be real and raw and honest. And so I just kept going deeper and deeper. But at the same time, I was going through the personal development. I was peeling back my own onion and the layers of my onion and peeling back the layers of the characters. And no, like, really, why did she do it? Go deeper, go deeper. And so I feel like, that was my fixed note, but it was also what I was experiencing and who I was becoming. And to the point about second chapters, where I feel like, second chapter is like, we get a chance to do it again, but without everything people told us we were, everything, all the expectations we inherited, all the things we thought we had to be. This time we're going to do it our way.
Yeah. That poor programming, from your first couple chapters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kat, now wrapping up, what are you up to these days? Is there anything you want to share that maybe I didn't ask about? Anything you have coming up? Anything at all? The floor is yours.
I love it. Well, first of all, thank you. This has been so much fun. I love talking about all these things. This has been gorgeous, gorgeous interview today. You can find me at catmargulis.com. You can find the book at againonlymorelikeyou.com. It's available in all your fine retailers and Amazon. And what else? Find me at Cat Margulis on Instagram. I'm doing speaking. I'm doing workshops. If you're interested in any of that, just sign up for my newsletter. Find me on catmargulis.com. Reach out. I love hearing from people. And if you've got a book, we should chat.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you, Kat.
Thank you.
And again, Kat's book was, again, Only More Like You. And if there's anything that I missed during this conversation you think I should have asked, anything, I know I jump off on tangents and rabbit holes. If I hear something, I kind of keep pulling back that string. But if there's anything that you think I should have asked, let me know. I'll reach out to Kat, see what kind of additional insight, guidance, wisdom, knowledge I can get back. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.